Okay, it's the old Buzzard again. I think I probably told you a little bit already about my experience with my winch. I got into a situation where I ran the damn winch where the hook went right through the fairlead and went round and around inside the where the winch goes and kind of tore some stuff up. But I wanted to show you what happened and what my solution is. So what had happened was that I'd been out in the mud and I got mud all over the darn thing, and I had to hose the inside out. It was just really caked all over the place. But I cleaned it up and let it sit and dry out. And the very first time I turned the key on, I heard the most ruckus grinding and clattering, and it sounded a lot like gears grinding to me, and that confused me for a little bit. But what it turned out is that while I was cleaning the rig, evidently I blasted a little tiny pebble up into the winch switch here. And evidently I had bumped it into the down position, or it just worked its way into the down position, and that little tiny pebble that was wedged alongside here held it in the retract position, and it took me a long enough time to figure out that that's what the problem was, that it screwed the winch up pretty good, or at least I thought it did. But now I'll go in, we'll have a look at what's what inside. So there are 3 rods that one of them goes right here and the other 2 equal spacing around there. They hold the winch in the proper position. I don't think structurally they do a whole lot. The entire structure and the strength of holding the motor side and the gearbox side together comes from having the winch mounted real securely to a plate. That's what gives it its entire strength. After thinking about it, these rods don't do a heck of a lot at all other than keep it in good alignment while it's not bolted down to anything. It had bent these rods pretty severely, all 3 of them, and broke screws off in the ends of them. So here's a couple pictures of what it did. You can see the rods are bent pretty severely, and it did chip some of the cast out on one of the castings. But I was able to straighten the rods out nicely, and anywhere where it was boogered up, I put them on the grinder and just touched them up so as the cable passes over them, the cable won't get frayed or anything from passing over the top of these. So initially I thought I was going to have to replace the whole darn thing, or not the whole thing, but at least the gearbox side. Again, up here, this is just a motor. There's a hex rod that goes all the way through the drum, and it's not a big rod, all the way through the drum down to the gearbox side. Yeah, like I say, it's a small rod. I was really surprised at how small it is, but evidently there's enough gear reduction that that rod can produce the 4,000 pounds. Oh, I'm going to make it fall apart. That's okay, it goes back together easy. Let me stop the video. Let me find the boogered up spot. Okay, let me show you something. If you ever take your winch apart to clean things up or whatever, or you need to fix it up like I'm fixing mine up, you'll notice right here there's a little spring clip, and of course this is the drive to the gearbox, and over here that's the other part of the drive to the gearbox. But you notice that little step right there? I'm 99% sure that that little spring clip has to go onto that step. That's the only thing that makes sense to me for why there'd be a step there. So now I got to carefully get that spring into the right position. Okay, it's all put back together. There's the big chip that I broke out of it. But I think, as I was saying before, once this thing is bolted down firmly to the winch plate, that's what's going to give us its structural strength. There should be no torsional, torsional being this way, should be no torsional stress on it because it's mounted to the plate. Really can't imagine what kind of stresses could be placed on these joints. That was broken out because this bar was bent so badly from the hook going through it that it pushed the bar way up and it pulled that chip out of it. But in any case, let's put it on the battery here and see if the thing's going to run. Polarity is not important because what your contactor does is reverse polarity to the winch. So one polarity is going to be winch in, the other polarity is going to be winch out. Not sure how much juice this old lawn tractor battery has, probably not much, but I just want to see it run. There it goes, that's out. So let's reverse polarity. In fact, I'll do it this way this time. We'll put positive over here, and this should winch in. Should winch in. Come on, winch in. Now, what's going on? Well, we got to figure that out. Okay, so here's some basic electrical troubleshooting. When we put the probe on the jumper, you can see we have 12.39 volts. But when I go down here to the actual terminal, we've got nothing on the terminal. So I've got a bad connection between this, see when I stick it in between, see, there's a double check. There's a bad connection between that jumper and there. So I got to clean some stuff up a little more. I've wire brushed them. I've got to admit, I guess when I put it together, I didn't put any dielectric grease on it. And these connections got pretty rusty and grody. So I've got to clean them up a bit more. While I'm at it, let me show you one more electrical troubleshooting tip. I showed you from terminal to terminal where I did and didn't have electricity. You know, from the terminal in the back to up here, you know, I have the 12 volts, but to the post I don't have anything. You can also check that connection between the clamp and the post, actually just by touching the clamp and the post, and you can see I have my after I moved them, I've only got 0.3 of a volt across it, so the back must not have a good connection now. Let me wiggle it around a little more. And now between here and here, I'm on a rusty spot. Let's go down here on a thread. There you go. You can see 12 volts across that electrical connection, where if you got a good connection, there shouldn't be any volts there. So that's another way you can check. You know, you can go from ground to wherever you need the electricity, but you can also verify a connection like I'm doing here, touching the source of the power and where I want the power to go. And if you have voltage across those two, then of course you don't have a good connection between the two. So now I'll clean it up a bit. Well, hello. Okay, it's all cleaned up, and boy, that's a real good lesson to make sure you put a lot of dielectric grease over these things. And if you don't have dielectric grease, just regular grease or even Vaseline works. But yeah, that's a lesson in how important that is. Okay, well, that sounds pretty normal to me. Let's reverse the polarity up here on the battery. I should have just wound it in, but that's okay. I'm going to have to unwind and re-spool the whole thing anyway, but just to work on it. Oh, I see a pretty good bugger in my cable too. I'll have to pull things out real tight and see if that straightens itself up. But here's reversed polarity. I think it sounds good, so I'm going to wind it all the way in now. Change the battery terminals here. Let's see. Yeah, it's a mess the way it is. But in order to put it back on my rig, I want it straightened up a little bit so that cable's not poking me in the face all the time. Well, let's just do it. And here she comes. And that's good. Okay. So I'm going to put the darn thing back on. There's a few things that are still a little buggered up here or there, but I think I'm going to get a decent pull out of it, and I don't think it's going to come apart. There was a gentleman on the group page that said perhaps it's better to leave the winch in the neutral position, so I think I'll do that. Won't matter now if the button accidentally gets stuck down or not. It's not going to go anywhere. In fact, let's put some power to it. She runs, but she doesn't go anywhere. Okay, so I'm going to go install it and we'll see what happens. Okay, the winch is back on and everything's tightened up nice. I think it came out pretty good. I had spooled the winch all the way out and tied it onto the truck. So I had the wife in the Maverick and so tied onto the truck, had her hold the brakes a little bit, and I kind of watched the winch as it was spooling on. So while she was on the brakes and winching it in, I was telling her left or right so that the spooling would be even back and forth across the winch. But I think it all came out. The only thing I'm really out, I had to buy some screws for it, and I need a new rubber stopper now. And as somebody suggested on the Facebook group, why not leave the thing in neutral? You know, even if I got to take a bungee or something and bungee the hook to the rollers there, to the fairlead, then, you know, to keep it from accidentally winding out, why not do that? Why not leave the winch in neutral just in case somebody accidentally hits the button or a piece of dirt gets stuck in it again? You know, this all started out with my shop cleanup and putting the stupid clock back in the thing right after I'd washed it. Well, I've got a hell of a shop cleanup left to do. Or actually it's worse now than when I began. But a couple of lessons to be learned here, I guess. When you wash the thing and you blow a lot of crap around the cab, stuff can get stuck under the switches. And probably no point leaving the winch engaged just in case. So that's another short old Buzzard video, and I hope that that's a lesson for all of us. You know, like I say, it's my mistake, my bad. But if we don't share those kind of things, then well, why not? You know, let's just learn from each other's mistake. So anyway, that's all from the old Buzzard. You guys take care. Bye-bye.